there's been this windfall for the Prime Minister, and I just take an example of the front of the FT. Sunak to lay aside windfall cash rather than helping households. Now, a lot of people were already critical of him pushing for a national insurance hike when we're already facing a cost of living crisis. Given that they're getting this revenue from tax receipts, is this a bad decision?
I think it could potentially be one that loses votes, especially when you consider that the actual less vocal voices within the Conservative government have actually quite often said to him that this is not really a vote winner and they are against these particular measures. This has happened before. So what we have now is a position where you have, as you rightly say, the individual members of the public being potentially hit by a national insurance rise, which is very expensive if you think about it. If you've got people, especially in London, actually one particular commentator, market analyst this morning said London will probably be hit the highest by these things because in London, if you have an average salary of, say, 60,000, 70,000, that's the kind of people are just getting by on that. And therefore
But you can't have it every way, Andrew. This is paying for the health service and the social care service that people say they won't, and that has to be paid for.
It does indeed, absolutely right. And I think it's a question of looking at how to... Exactly as you rightly said earlier, this particular Chancellor has a reputation in the eye of the public. Whether it's right or wrong is something, but the reputation is that he has spent and taxed. So what you've got here is a black hole of £11 billion where over the last 2 years, the furlough scheme, Rishi Sunak's furlough scheme, some of that was misappropriated and it was never been claimed back. So Companies House are now looking at how to... there's a lot of companies being struck off the register, being voluntarily struck off the register at the moment. Companies House is blocking those. I spoke to Companies House last week, and they are blocking quite a few applications to strike off companies because they're pending an inspection as to whether they spent what they spent the money on, basically.
Yes, whether they make fraudulent claims.
That's right, fraudulent claims on the furlough scheme and on the bounce-back loan schemes.
Yes.
So some of them are under investigation for that. And there isn't really much recourse over it. So what perhaps they could do, I mean, it's not really for me to say, but let's say what they could do is potentially try to keep the markets flowing and the retail side of things by keeping the public able to afford certain things and then look to recuperate some of that particular cash. 11 billion, it would go quite a long way to bridge that gap, I suppose.
So they would get that back through people spending money and paying income tax and getting VAT returns and things. So it just keeps the economy...
Keep the economy turning over.
Turning
exactly.
over, right.